Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave, this fella here. Today I have 14 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. Let's get to it. Case file number 2857, written by Z-Skirp114411. He took the sign with him. I had a crazy experience last month after my cousin, who worked in Hollywood for 25 plus years, passed away. I'm hoping someone out there can help me make sense of it. There's a hill I hike in Los Angeles where you see the Hollywood sign. The day after my cousin died, I hiked up there listening to his playlist his wife sent me, the one he listened to in his final days. I was grieving, reflecting on our childhood, and decided to say some words to him while viewing a sign. But when I got to the top, the Hollywood sign was gone. Like really gone. I couldn't believe the timing. I assumed it was down for renovations, but I took photos and videos and even asked another hiker if I was losing it. She confirmed that she didn't see it either. It was a clear, normal LA afternoon, no clouds and no sign. I texted a few people joking that he took it with him. Walking down the hill, I couldn't help but think, what are the chances that iconic sign is getting a makeover the same day my cousin dies? So weird. When I got home, I searched Google, asked AI, checked X, local news, nothing about the sign being removed or renovated. 3 days later, I did the same hike again, same time of day, same clear weather. The sign was back, untouched, not one crane in sight. I can't wrap my head around it. Glitch, timeline jump, a sign from my cousin? That'd be a pretty big stunt to pull off less than 24 hours after passing, but he was an epic human. What do you think? Also, has anyone else had a glitch tied to a loved one's passing? And it's funny, I was thinking about Hollywood movies, and especially the end of the world apocalypse movies where the Hollywood sign is always being destroyed. Poor sign. I don't think that has anything to do with your cousin, but it's just funny to think about. And yeah, were you switching between universes really quickly? And you had a witness even to confirm, yeah, the sign wasn't there. I wonder if the sign is taken down sometimes for maintenance or something. I figured they would just send crews out there to, grapple up top or be harnessed up or something to do maintenance. So I'm not sure. The whole sign going missing seems really weird. Case file number 2858, written by Vespine Wings. Ragnar at Ground Zero. My wife was sitting out back with one of her cats, Ragnar. Ragnar is a good little tracker. Bugs don't get away from him, and he's caught and killed a bird in our backyard before. She was sitting there, watching him sniff around in the yard and chew on the grass, when a bird swooped low at him. He hopped back, his tail fluffed, and watched the bird fly back up into the tree. It was being protective of its nest, it seemed. My wife suspected the bird must have had eggs up there, and she didn't really want Ragnar to kill it for the bird to hunt Ragnar in a desperate attempt to ward off a predator from its young, so she decided it was time to bring Ragnar back inside. She stood up and called to him as she moved off the patio and onto the grass, when a bird, unsure if it was the same one, dive-bombed right into the lawn between my wife and the cat. Ragnar immediately bolted for the bird, and my wife tried to beat him there. But the bird was gone. Ragnar was as confused as my wife. They stared at the ground looking for the bird, but it had completely disappeared into the earth. She ran inside and told me, and I came outside to see Ragnar still walking around searching the ground. I went out and looked all over, assuming I'd eventually find its body, but no. My wife and my cat watched the bird fly into the ground and just disappear. Yeah, okay, the bird clearly disappeared. Unless he found like a hole that was a groundhog hole or something like that. Probably not. And you had your expert witness there to confirm. Ragnar says, "Where's my food?" Case file number 2859, written by Sugar Star Beam. Level 6, Take 2. This happened when I was visiting my friend in Savannah. We drove downtown and parked in a small parking garage so we could walk around. It wasn't an elaborate garage to get lost in. It had 7 floors, where the 7th was rooftop parking. We parked in a left-hand space where level 6 turned into 7, meaning we parked where half above us was the ceiling and the other half was the sky. We headed downstairs into the common streets of the city, went to a restaurant, a candy store, did sightseeing and window shopping for a couple of hours. Around dusk, both of our phones died. We didn't want the night to end yet, plus I wanted to take more pictures of downtown, so we headed back to the parking garage to charge them. We took the stairs up, we get to the car, plugged our phones in the charging port to gain just enough battery life, waited like 10 minutes, then returned for a couple more hours of strolling around the area. When we decided to call it a night, we took the elevator up to the 6th floor, and once we walked to the only space in the garage that was halfway in the garage and halfway outside, my friend's car wasn't there. Instead, there was a whole different row of cars than before, no empty spaces. Bewildered, we thought, there's no other parking space in the garage we could have parked. Did we get towed? Not knowing what to do, we returned to the elevator, went down to the ground floor, stepped out, and just stood there for a moment. I think then it began to sink in how strange this was. My friend oddly kinda felt angry because there was no room for making a human error in the situation. We were sober and alert. We definitely were at the same parking garage. There is only one part of a garage where it's halfway in and the other half outside. This wasn't a "we must have parked on the wrong floor" situation. Like I said, it was a small garage. There was no other elevator or section of the garage. Not being able to make sense of it, after about 2 minutes, we got back into the elevator, up to the 6th floor, as we did before. We went to the exact same spot. Then, lo and behold, his car was there again. As the night continued, and days since, my friend and I have combed through that strange experience to debunk it. There was no way to make sense of it. Just thinking of it gives me chills. Another friend asked, was this a Ferris Bueller type situation? I laughed a bit, but the spaces in the garage were occupied, and my friend's car was missing for only a few minutes. I've had moments that seemed off and eerie in my life that didn't make sense, but I would shrug it off as a misjudgment of my own. This, however, was clear as day. It didn't make sense. I journaled it down the next day to avoid a Mandela effect. I learned more about the history there, and it's ugly. Thousands of horror stories of suffering, torture, terror, and oppression. I pray these souls find peace and light. Elevators, if you know, you know. But yeah, I was thinking of the Seinfeld episode, the garage episode, where they're just trying to find their car. They can't seem to figure it out. In this case, yeah, you know you were in the right spot. It just happens to be that universes aren't so static, and we can shift between them, especially if you go into an elevator. Prepare yourself. But then I was also thinking of Stargate, where they have the quantum mirror. They can touch it and be transported to a different universe, but how does that work to get back? Do we have an identifier within our soul or something so we can switch back to our originating universe? Because it never seems to be a problem where you're stuck permanently in a different universe, unless it's quantum immortality and your body's destroyed. That's different, but in terms of physical body, going back and forth, yeah, you can always go back, so we must have some sort of identifier, like a tag with the number of the universe we're from. Universe number 2211, probably 20 digits long or something. Case file number 2860, written by Lucy Blake. When hotel amenities get spooky. One time, when I was staying in a hotel, I was standing in the bathroom running a bath. I stood in front of the sink scrolling on my phone. When I entered the bathroom, the amenities were neatly sitting in the sink, exactly how housekeeping had left it. The lotion was sitting there front-facing. I hadn't used it yet. I looked up and immediately noticed something really off. The lotion that had been front-facing when I got in there was suddenly perfectly turned around, now back-facing. Not lightly nudged by something knocking it over or airflow, perfectly turned around. I didn't see it actually move. I just saw it go from perfectly front-facing to perfectly back-facing within a few minutes. But I had never touched it, and nobody else was in the room, and I was staying there alone. I thought that was really weird. How did the lotion perfectly turn around by itself? So I moved it back. I turned it back around to front-facing, and then went back to scrolling on my phone. Looked up again a couple minutes later. My bath was almost ready, and the lotion had moved on its own again. This time it was suddenly and perfectly facing sideways. I had just moved it front facing and didn't touch it again. Now it was suddenly perfectly facing sideways with no one touching it. But this time I didn't move it back again. I just left it as is and took my bath. Once I got out of the bath, I looked again, and it was still sideways, and hadn't moved on its own again. And during all of the following days it stayed sideways like that. Never moved again. You found an OCD ghost, although he didn't switch back exactly like he did the first time, so maybe he changed his mind, I don't know, but clearly not malicious. Case file number 2061, written by Clever Girl D. The Quiet That Jingled. A few weeks ago, I was home, but I wasn't alone. One stepdaughter's, preteen, was with me, and we were talking in the kitchen while my husband and the other kids were out. We knew they'd be coming home soon, and were just chatting. For reference, I don't know if this is more paranormal or what, considering my stepdaughter and I have talked about this again recently. We live on the top floor of a 4-story old house and heard keys jingling outside the apartment. One apartment below us is empty and waiting for new tenants to move in. Another is occupied by someone who isn't there on weekends. We heard keys distinctly jingling outside the door. We looked at each other and she was like, "Oh, Dad plus siblings are back already." Knowing they'd have groceries with them, we went to the door to open it for them. We opened it and nobody was there. Nothing at all. We looked at each other kinda confused and we questioned if the other had heard the keys too. We both did. We decided to check if someone was in the hallway of the house. Nobody there. Considering the sheer amount of steps to get up to the top floor, we'd have heard if someone was still in the building. We decided to go outside and check, but also because we both had a weird feeling. As we went outside, we realized that there weren't any birds chirping, no breeze, just silence. We live a bit out in nature, so it's normal you hear birds at every hour in summer, but not that day. It was so weird we just went back into our apartment. We recently talked about it again. It didn't make much sense to us at the time and still doesn't now, but we both know what we heard. Case file number 2062, written by Laundryman 2008, The Enchanted Tree and Its Endless Coins. Was out to deliver some packages, sent them, and decided to pay the field a little visit. The field is mostly empty, with a cobnut bush on one side, a small grove of trees on the other, with the 2 remaining sides having a path cutting through that is a decent distance from a single large tree that is placed in the dead middle of the field. Not many people visit the tree, as there is tall grass surrounding it. Maybe some dogs run past, so the €1 coin should not end up there frequently, if at all. That's the explanation of the field, so I decided to go up to the tree, knowing that lots of cool insects live there. I saw one of those rainbow insects that spring flip themselves, which I flipped a few times. Then a green-red spider hiding in a hole, and then I checked out the ant colony which were dragging back a dead fly. There are 2 routes, with one having the ants living in it, and the other which only has dirt. There was a lightly dusted €1 coin from the hard dirt. Considered it lucky. Huffed on it 3 times and put it in my left pocket. It's a Polish tradition, thing you do when you find a coin, and went to check the cobnut bush to see the progress of the nuts. Went back the following day to do some catching in Pokemon Go, decided to check the tree as it was a Pokestop to collect the free items and saw the $1 coin again in the same place with the same light dusting. Did the same ritual of huffing the coin and put it in my left pocket. At this point the cobnuts were almost ready, so I was coming more frequently to check and collect them. I decided, for the heck of it, to check the tree again and found yet another €1 coin, same light dusting with the same year and wear marks. Decided to play with another few flip beetles before going back home. Now I go there every day, and have now amassed a jar full of the lightly dusted €1 coins that has a slight lining of dirt at the bottom, which I compared them all, which all have the same year and scratch on the top right of the coin. There must be a glitch in the matrix, and I wonder if anyone else has a money glitch location? I probably will use the money on a used bike, and then the extra will go towards buying a new server tape drive to play with and add to my collection. After that it will fund data storage media to add to my wall. So the saying is, money doesn't grow on trees, but I guess it does sprout from the roots? Nice. What would I do with endless infinite money? Although it's only $1 a day-ish. Probably just more Subway. Has to be. Case file number 2863, written by Last Masterpiece 9049, Pepsi, Paradox, and Polyester. A couple weeks ago, I bought only one plain orange t-shirt from my local Walmart. I'm currently on my vacation in New York, and I packed the orange shirt the night before in my suitcase. My mom also brought a trash bag for the Airbnb for us to all put our dirty clothes in that needed to be washed. Then I got it out of my suitcase and put it on. After just a single day, I spilled Pepsi on it and it got dirty, so I threw it in the trash bag. I'm returning back home in 4 days, and I recently checked my suitcase for another pair of pants when I saw something orange poking out between a few other shirts. I grabbed it, and it was the same freaking orange shirt, completely clean. You might think my parents put it in the washing machine, but this Airbnb doesn't have one and never has had one. I then checked the trash bag with the dirty clothes and found the orange shirt that I stained with soda. I thought I was going insane, so I took both shirts and placed them next to each other, and asked my mom what she saw, and she said, 2 orange shirts. What the hell? Help! Case file number 2864, written by Bowie Spiders, 93 Inches of Mystery. My spouse and I have been slowly renovating the top floor of our house for 10 years. One reason the work has dragged on for so long is that we kept finding new problems, which require a new demo, which reveal new problems. Eventually it turned into a complete gut remodel, and at that point we were like, since we've gotten this far, we might as well do it properly. So we leveled the floor joists, redid all the wiring, added some beams, and raised the ceiling joists to add an extra 9 inch to the ceiling height. Enough to bring them to code and make the space feel less cramped. The ceilings went from 83 inches to 92 inches. Due to the fact that we were dealing with different things at different times, work, illness, child rearing, etc., we haven't been able to work together very much. So he did pretty much all the ceiling raising work, and I did all the floor leveling work. I'm also better at the wood construction stuff, while he's better at the plumbing and wiring. So I did have to go through and help him redo some of the ceiling work, especially replacing some weirdly installed and unsafe structural members, but overall, he did a pretty good job. At the very beginning of this work, before we realized what we were getting into, we opened the crummy cardboard paneled walls in one of the bedrooms, redid some wiring, and put in some new unfinished drywall. The rest of the rooms were all clad in old knotty pine from the 40s. We wanted to salvage some of that wood, so we started using the first bedroom to store all those pine boards while we demoed the rest of the rooms. As the enormity of the task started to sink in, we decided not to make things any harder on ourselves than we had to. A decision was made to finish the rest of the renovation, replacing some pine boards where we wanted them and disposing of the rest. Then proceed with the floor leveling and ceiling raising in that first bedroom once we'd emptied all the wood out. My husband and I have had multiple conversations about how, once we're done with the rest of the reno, we'll have to go in and raise the ceilings in this last room to get it to match the others. It's complicated by the fact that this room has a sloping roof above it that touches the ceiling joist at the exterior wall. So to raise the ceiling will require additional ventilation soffits and some careful planning. It's just been a known thing since we bought the house 10 years ago that all the ceilings on the upper floor were under 7 foot. So today, I was up there working on something else, and I went to swap a drill battery out of the charger. The charger is in the unfinished hallway right next to the doorway into this particular bedroom. All the doors have been gone for years, it's all open. I was sorta half in, half out of the bedroom, pulling out the battery, and I looked up, and did a double take. I looked at the drywall ceiling in the bedroom. Then I looked at the ceiling joist in the hallway. I looked in the bedroom. I looked in the hallway. There was a door lintel between them, but I swear, there couldn't have been more than an inch difference between them. I grabbed a tape measure and measured the height between the plywood subfloor and the ceiling joists, about 93 inches. I then measured between the old flooring and the drywall ceiling in the bedroom, 92 inches. When my husband came home, I told him, "So I guess I was wrong when I said we still had to raise the ceiling joist in that back bedroom." He asked me to clarify, and I explained how I must have somehow imagined that the height in the back bedroom was just under 7 foot, like all the other rooms had been. He was very confused because he also remembered it being oppressively low and needing to be raised, especially since this is going to be our room and we both notice how horribly cramped and depressing a room can feel when the ceilings are under 7 foot. It wasn't just the measurement, we both remembered that bedroom being horribly cramped and low-ceilinged, like all the other rooms on that level. What's interesting about this is that both of us have been dreading this last nasty bit of demo work. Undoing ceiling drywall in a 100-year-old house is just as horrible as it sounds. So this is an unexpected relief for both of us. So a different universe, probably? Although, both of you being transported there, quantum immortality, somehow you both died in the originating universe, that kinda makes me wonder when both people are transported because your husband also realized, yeah, no, this isn't right. So you're both moved to a different universe. One where maybe you had already done the repairs or the renovations and raised the ceiling height. But it's strange. What would kill two people in a house? Like, there's very rare events where maybe a whole house blows up because of a gas leak or something. I've seen videos of that, or like a plane crashing into it, but all these things are so uncommon. I don't know. Not impossible, but improbable. Case file number 2865, written by Weird Wish 6820. The Misplaced of Macabre. A month ago, I made a locket using a glass coffin case, and I filled it with 2 skull charms and a cross. I decided to wear it one night, and I accidentally opened it. Of course, the charms fell out. Rearranging them was tricky, so I just put them back in my pocket. Once I got home that night, I pulled my keys out from the same pocket, and I felt one of the charms fall out, and I even heard the sound of something tiny falling and bouncing on the concrete. When I got outside, I checked, and sure enough, I was missing one of the skulls. I looked outside with a flashlight, but I couldn't find it. I figured it was lost for good. A week later, I changed into pajama shorts that were in my closet and felt something in the pocket. When I pulled out the object, to my surprise, it was the missing skull charm. It somehow ended up in the pocket of a pair of shorts that were in my closet ever since I made the locket. I'll never be able to figure out how it just reappeared there. Case file number 2866, written by Little Spawning Flower. Double inked. This just happened the other night, and it felt like a wink or nudge in the ribs from the cosmos, so I thought I'd share. I keep a little journal-style calendar in my bathroom, so I can keep track of what products I use in my daily skincare routine and when. It's on the counter, and in it I keep a pen that I received in a welcome packet when I enrolled for a class at the local college a couple years ago. The pen is dark blue plastic with the college name and logo printed on it in white. Since I've been keeping the journal since January, the printing has gotten noticeably worn and scratched. The other night I came in to wash my face and do my evening routine, and when I picked up the journal, my pen fell out of it and landed on the counter next to a brand new pen from the college. It's just my husband and me at home. We've had no company in months, and I only got the one pen at orientation 2 years ago, and I've not been on campus since completing the course, so I have no explanation for where the second pen came from, other than it just felt like a very benevolent joke that I hope will make you smile too. Small stories like this always make me smile. It's the small glitches that really get you. Case file number 2867, written by Just a Little Fun. 6 feet and a second. This happened when I was in college. I was riding my bicycle home from work. The turn up to my apartment complex was kind of tricky. To give you a mental image of this, I'll try and describe the scene. The turn is on a downhill slope on the main road, with the side road up to the apartment heading uphill to the right, so it's fairly sharp. Anywho, it had been raining not long before, so the road was still a little damp. I had crested the hill on the main road and was heading downhill, leaned into the turn to the right, going uphill, when the bike tires lost traction. The bike flew out from under me, and I found myself in a nosedive heading straight at the curb head first. The only thing I had time to think about was, The next instant, I was crouched on the sidewalk roughly 6 feet away, watching my bike impact the curb. I was stationary, just crouched down on my feet. I was completely unhurt without a mark or scuff on me. I still have no logical explanation of how I went from a nosedive inches from my face impacting the curb to crouched 6 feet away from where I was the instant before watching my bike hit the sidewalk. It took me a few minutes to get myself together and wheel my bike the rest of the way to the apartment. It was no longer rideable due to a bent rim. Quantum immortality strikes again in a classic sense. I bet you're gonna ride a bit more safe now. Case file number 2868, written by I Suck Less. Smoke, silence, and something missing. I couldn't sleep thinking about this, and I searched all over for possible reasons. Last night, me and my boyfriend did our usual run for McDonald's. He picked me up in his car, and I wore a jacket I just bought the day before and told him all about it. We parked next to a road, and I thought it was so hot, so I took off my jacket and placed it on the roof of his car, and he placed his Marlboro next to it. Then we sat on the curb next to his car, talking and smoking. He asked where his cigarette was, and I said it was next to my jacket, and pointed at the roof. It was the last time I saw my jacket. He took it, and then leaned on the back of the car in case someone tried to snoop around and drive his car away. We went back to talking. I was still sitting on the curb. It became chilly after a minute or two, so I tried to grab my jacket, but it had disappeared. And mind you, this was at 3 a.m. at an empty road. Me and my boyfriend searched the entire area with our phone flashlight, checked the car inside, and it was just gone. We were searching for it for half an hour. There was no possible explanation to this. There was nobody besides us there. We were purposely looking for a quiet place so we can talk and chill together. It was a heavy jacket, there was no wind, and we didn't hear any footsteps. We thought we were going insane, so we looked at each other to see if either one of us were wearing my jacket, but nope, it just is gone. Case file number 2869, written by I Like Cats 92712. Do spirits have good taste? My husband and I moved into a new home last month, and we have both had an item inexplicably disappear from their spot, then reappear. A couple weeks ago, we were hanging out outside, and I was wearing sunglasses when the sun started to set, so I put them back in the kitchen junk drawer. The next morning, I went to get them from the drawer, and they weren't there. My husband and I looked everywhere. I took every single item out of the kitchen junk drawer and put everything back in. My sunglasses really weren't there. The next morning, my husband opened the same drawer and pulled out my sunglasses. I was shocked. My husband swears he did not put my sunglasses in that drawer. He was helping me look for them the day before, and we had no guess over in between me taking everything out of the drawer and then my sunglasses appearing there. The other item is a very specific sweatshirt that my husband loves. It's a discontinued Lululemon sweatshirt that he bought secondhand and only has one. When we moved last month, he brought it in the U-Haul with him and hadn't remembered seeing it since. I brushed it off and assumed it was somewhere in the house. He had talked almost every day about how he was so bummed he couldn't find his sweatshirt. We both looked all over the house several times. I have watched him go through all of the clothes hanging in the closet multiple times, and I personally have also gone through all of the clothes hanging in the closet and can attest that it was not hanging in the closet. A few days ago, he called me into the closet and with a shocked look on his face said, "Look! It was a sweatshirt just hanging up in the closet." Is our timeline adjusting to being in a new house, in a new state, and a few of our favorite items have jumped dimensions and back? Do we have a friendly yet stylish ghost who borrowed our things? I do have a sage that I bought and plan to sage our house with that. I just haven't done it yet, but now I'm wondering if I should hurry up and do that. Case file number 2870, written by Halfling Tiefling. Altered Fits. This isn't a joke. This isn't some "Teehee, elves come in the night and take your clothing." And I'm aware that clothing can shrink in the wash and that people can gain weight. I get it. I know. But this isn't any of that, and I don't know what happened or why. I keep an entire change of clothing at work. Black shirt, black slacks, black leather belt, period underpants and socks, and a black cardigan. This has come in handy more than once, mostly the underpants, although I've loaned out the cardigan to people a few times. I'm very fat, and I've been consistently the same size for about a decade. I'm part of a program through my insurance which requires me to log my weight regularly, so I know how much I weigh. None of my other clothing has gotten tight. In fact, I selected these clothes because they're too big. The shirt is really baggy. I didn't realize until recently that I was buying shirts that were too large. The pants are too loose in the waist, and the legs were too long. The belt was ridiculously too long. I'd have to buckle it, then wrap the loose end of the belt around the body of the belt. I picked these clothes to keep at work because I don't wear them. The shirt and trousers are both hung dry, which is a pain in the butt, but they're in good enough condition so I didn't want to get rid of them. I had a problem at work a few months ago and grabbed my spare underpants and trousers and belt and went to the bathroom to change. I could barely button the trousers. Trousers so loose previously that they needed a belt to stay up. The belt didn't even fit around my waist. Again, I haven't gained weight. My body shape hasn't changed. I wasn't bloated. All of the clothing in my closet at home fits the same. I tried the pants on before stashing them at work. Checked the zipper and buttons, everything. They were too loose and too long, but otherwise great. The belt was super long. So how did the pants get smaller? How did the belt get several sizes smaller? I have 2 other pairs of slacks identical to that pair. Same brand, same style, same size, purchased at the same time. The ones at home are too loose, and the legs are too long. They're the way they've always been. Again, I know that clothing can shrink, but these garments were loose when I put them in my locker at work. I know people can gain weight. I haven't. I know that bodies can shift fat around, especially during perimenopause. Hello? My body hasn't changed shape. Everything at home fits me just the same. I'm glad I was able to squeeze into those trousers because my pants were not salvageable without a thorough washing. There's a lot of reasonable explanations for this, yet none of them apply. I haven't replaced those trousers yet. I took the trousers home and compared them to my other, identical trousers, same size tag. I discussed it with my husband at the time. I thought maybe I'd somehow grab his belt instead of my too long one, but he confirmed the belt wasn't his. Among other things, it was too skinny. His belts are wider and a thicker leather. This has physical stuff involved, and a second person, my husband, confirmed the size tag. Yeah, this is weird. Normally you get DOP and lots of stories in this video alone, where items disappear or they come back, reappear, but shifting items, that's far less common. And this is a clear description of it, especially given you track your body weight so specifically because of your insurance program. Especially the belt, that is clear indication that the item just shifted. The amount of weight you'd have to gain for the belt to actually stretch out completely, where you had to loop it around before. I mean, you'd have to almost double in size. It's unimaginable that happened. Shifting items. We got DOP, reappearing items, and shifting items now. Just this one much less common. Now time for the jokes of the day. The Beastie Boys announced an upcoming 5-part anthology collection. You can get parts A, B, C, and D for free. But you gotta fight for your right to party. Chuck Norris once threw a grenade that killed 50 people. Then it exploded. 71% of the world is water. None of it is carbonated. The earth is flat. Texted my wife to tell her Hulk Hogan died. She replied, WTF. I responded, no, he was WWF. Apparently they changed the name from WWF, World Wrestling Foundation or something, to a WWE. There's some copyright issue, I don't know, but interesting. Shame that Hulk Hogan died though. I remember a movie with him that was in it. He was a bodyguard for some kid. Forgot the name of it, but yeah, the kid was crazy. He tried to electrocute him or something. What is the big deal about that couple hugging at a Coldplay concert? I'm really not up to date with current affairs. Alright, here's another video to watch, and don't forget to like this one and subscribe. See you next time.